Well, there are a number of things that we're looking for today. Firstly, the most important thing is economic growth. Our economy is not growing fast enough. In fact, it's not growing at all. And what the minister needs to do is to tell us what he's going to be doing to incentivize small business in particular so that they can grow, because that is in fact the growth of South Africa. Small businesses employ the most people and they are capable of bringing in the most amount of money in revenue over time. So we want to see what incentives the minister would have for small business. Also, very importantly, the rolling blackouts. That does need to be resolved. So what we expect from the minister in the short run is to look at how he can make life slightly easier for South Africans by giving them tax relief, for example, on solar panels or in inverters. We want that immediate relief. Also, we need to look at what the longer-term solution is. We need to allow the private sector to get involved in Eskom. We need to make sure that we can separate Eskom as the DA has proposed. That is vital. So we will be listening very carefully to what the minister has to say about that. Also, very importantly, is what the minister is going to be doing about Eskom's debt. There is a plan to transfer Eskom's debt from Eskom onto the national balance sheet. We do not support that in the absence of a coherent plan to resolve this problem. So we'll be looking at that quite carefully. Also, crucially, we're looking at what the minister is going to be doing in terms of debt. We know that the cost of interest is rising and it's starting to crowd out service delivery on basic services in South Africa. So he needs to cut back on various items, and we're expecting him to do that. We'll be watching that very carefully to manage those debt levels downward. And then the vulnerable South Africans who are battling with the spiraling cost of living, we do expect him to do something on that. We do think that he's going to be extending the social relief of distress grant, and we would support that. And the DA also has a view that over the long term, we could introduce a conditional basic income grant on the back of economic growth that will make life much easier for the most vulnerable South Africans. Also, we have already asked over time for VAT to be removed off a larger basket of food items. That we are hoping that the minister might say something about that. We don't expect that he's going to do that because he doesn't have the fiscal space, because government has made the wrong policy choices. We also want to hear whether the minister is going to increase other taxes, because the DA will not support tax increases, especially not at a time when your average South African household is battling to put enough food on the table. Also, it's highly likely that South Africa is going to be grey-listed by the Financial Action Task Force on Friday, which means that we're going to have immediate steps to make sure we can get off that list as quickly as possible. And that means more money needs to be put onto the National Prosecuting Authority, and there needs to be much more effort by government to prosecute financial criminals. And we want to hear how government's going to do that. It needs to put money on that, because if it doesn't, we'll end up being on the grey list for long, and that's going to impact very heavily on our economy. In fact, it's likely to shave up to 2% off our GDP growth over the next 2 years, which is very significant. So the minister has quite a lot to talk about. We do expect that he's going to be talking the same language. He's going to be talking about bailing out the state-owned enterprises and having government at the centre of the economy. We know that it's a dysfunctional government and it's unable to do that. So we don't have very high expectations, but we, as a very sensible opposition with a plan, are very clear on the things that we want to see, and we've already set those out.